Climathon time! Actually, that's a lie. It's Halloween, hence the makeup. But what is spookier than climate change? And also tomorrow is another renovation day here in the house, so I will not be able to film and I will certainly not look like it. And I think I'm gonna start a tiny bit early. I'm gonna start with the group book, All We Can Say. Very excited for that. And I've also decided to parallel read with Legends and Lattes, which has nothing to do with the environment or climate change, but everything to do with keeping your mental health healthy. But yeah, I hope you guys are reading along, and I'm super excited for this month, and now I'm gonna get back to work. This is what happens if you let plants too long in pots. They get very, very sad. You're free! Well, so much to reusing those. Wow, the shadow looks quite weird, but I literally need to stand right next to the lamp in order for you to see me in a proper light, because it's dark outside already and our temporary apartment does not have the brightest light. So yeah, there's that. I wanted to give you a reading update first and foremost, and I also wanted to give a little bit of a disclaimer for this video, because it's like in the middle of all my renovation content, and my renovation content is incredibly behind. So with my renovation content, I'm currently like end of August, beginning of September, but this video is November. So after this vlog, I'm gonna go back to my regular video schedule with probably the beginning of September, with the timeline of the renovations. I just cannot catch up. I'm so behind on the renovation videos, and currently I'm also not having the most time to edit. And as you might hear from my voice, I'm also a little bit sick, so that's great. But yeah, I just wanted to give that as a little explanation as to what this video is, where it stands in the renovation context, because I'm gonna insert like some clips of some things that we do, but they're like kind of out of timeline, which sucks, but well, it is what it is. And I hope that explains things. So again, this video is November and the next video is going to be beginning of September again. Now to the reading update. It is the 3rd of November. So the 3rd official day of Climathon, Nonfiction November and Skoden Readathon. which is a readathon all about indigenous literature, which is awesome, and which of course goes hand in hand with the Climathon and all of that. So that's very exciting. I'm of course focusing on the Climathon 100% this month, but I'm also gonna try and get some challenges done from the other two readathons. Now to the reading update. First of all, we have All We Can Save, which is my priority. I need to get this read, and I'm about like 30% into it. And I thought this would be like a 5-star read, but I don't think it will be. I think the book, from those 30% that I've read, is incredibly important. I just don't know if it's my personal cup of tea, because it's like a collection of, you know, like essays and stories and that kind of stuff, which is cool because it gives a lot of people a platform and allows us to discover new voices. But I have a very hard time with like short story collections, essay collections, all that kind of stuff, because it's just hard for me to like switch every few pages, like in terms of voice and story, which is why I usually don't read that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I have some problems with it. My other problem is that it is incredibly US-centric, and as a European. Then I also started Notes from the Burning Age by Claire North. I'm just like less than 10% into it, so I just read like the first few pages, and I unfortunately don't like it. No, I was, again, also convinced this was gonna be a 5-star. I've read something by Claire North before and loved it. And the premise of this book sounds so awesome. So I don't really know what's happening, but like, I like the story, but I hate the writing style. And I hope, because like the beginning of the story is like the past, like what happened before the actual story, I think. And I hope that now when it switches, it's gonna be better. I really hope so, because I want to love the book so much. But yeah, that is also going on. And then lastly, I started a book that has absolutely nothing to do with climate or anything like it, and that is Legends and Lattes. Again, nothing to do with Climathon, but I needed a book to read before going to bed, because I like to read a few pages right before I fall asleep. And nonfiction always puts me to sleep. It's just too hard on my brain, especially nonfiction on climate stuff. And even climate fiction just gives me nightmares, because climate anxiety is a thing. It's very real, and I battle it every day. So not the best choice to read before bed. So that is why I picked up Legends and Lattes, to have like something nice to calm my brain and to read before I fall asleep. And that one I'm loving. So far I'm, I think, also like 30% into it or so. Love it. So yeah, let's hope some of my climate reads will also be good. So my plan was to only pop on here again once I have finished any of the books that I was reading. But my Kindle doesn't work anymore. I had such a wonderful system of reading All We Can Save during the day and in the evening, instead of being on my laptop, and then switching to Legends and Lattes right before going to sleep, and it was working so well. And I was actually recording a voice message last night to Ania, my co-host, saying how wonderful it was going, and that I was so happy, and that I was also enjoying the last couple of essays that I was reading in All We Can Save. And now my Kindle doesn't turn on anymore. I don't know what's happening. It like I press the button and nothing happens, so I cannot unlock the thing, and the battery is full, and I don't know what to do. Because I don't have any of my books, because everything is in boxes, as you can see behind me. And my book boxes are actually already in the new house, buried under a billion other boxes. Yeah. I don't have any physical books, let alone climate books, with me, and my Kindle isn't working anymore, and my phone doesn't have any like capacity in terms of space to download anything. So I don't know what to do. What is happening? I literally didn't touch it. Like, I've tried to get it to work, of course, but nothing happened. And now suddenly out of nowhere it started to glow, and it's doing this. I don't know what's happening, but maybe, are you working again? Please. I mean, nothing against watching, BookTube. Wow, that's a great frame. Sorry, Jan. But please tell me you're working again. Come on. Are you? It's back! Oh my god, I hope it's working. I hope it will. Yes! I hope, maybe. Yes! It's working! Oh, please keep working. Oh my god, my heart.
Ich wünsche mir vor allen Dingen, dass nicht nachgelassen wird.
Wir müssen in der gesamten Gesellschaft über die Nachhaltigkeit, über die über die Biodiversitätskrise sprechen.
Weil die Klimakatastrophe etwas ist, was uns alle betrifft.
It is now the 10th of November. My Kindle has lasted and I've just finished our group book, All We Can Save, and I have so many thoughts. Also, if you can hear the storm outside, I'm sorry, we have like a massive storm going on right now and it's like howling and everything, but it looks kind of impressive to watch the waves, I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, back to the book. I thought that I was going to give All We Can Save 5 out of 5 stars before I started it. I thought this was going to be amazing. I thought I would finally feel hopeful and empowered. And to a certain degree, I do. But as I already mentioned in one of the other clips, I do have a problem with like essay collections and stuff. It just doesn't have the same impact for me as like a full-length book from like the same person or the same few people does. It just didn't really reach me fully. It didn't like change me in the way I want it to be changed. And I do think that All We Can Save is an incredible resource, especially if you are in the US, because the book, unfortunately to my personal detriment, is incredibly US centric. But if you are in the US or in general, like active in the climate space, I think this book is an incredible resource. You have a collection of fantastic activists, poets, and just in general people who are active in the space and who are creative in the space. And yeah, it's an incredible resource of projects, facts, and people. So I still would like a copy on my shelf one day for that exact reason. However, again, very US-centric, and as a European, it's just very exhausting to have everything being so US-centric all of the time. But that's not necessarily a fault of the book, it's just like a general thing that it's like, and another one, you know? And for me, it was also a little bit like, it's kind of funny because it's, on one hand, I have a hard time, you know, like with essay collections and stuff, because like it's a new thing every few pages, and that's something just my mind has a problem with. But at the same time, I also had a problem with the fact that so many of the texts were so similar to one another in the structure they were written. All of the texts are super valid, and some of them I absolutely adored and loved. So this is not like to say that any of these texts like should be different or shouldn't be there. That's not what I'm trying to say, just that a lot of them were in the same structure, which I kind of think they had to be to make sense, but a lot of them were like, okay, like here's a scene or just an introduction, and then they tell you who they are and how they ended up in the environmental space. Then they throw a bunch of completely devastating but true environmental facts into your face, and then there's like, okay, and this is the project that we are working on, or this is the company that was founded, or this is how I handle it. And all of this is valid but for me it just didn't really work. And funnily enough, I feel like the text that had the most impact on me was a text that didn't fit into the collection at all. Because again, I feel like it was a lot of like forced hope, quote unquote. I'm not saying that the hope is not real, but it felt like very pushy. You had a lot of texts that were very anti doom and gloom and like literally stating things like, oh, we don't have time for people who are like doom and gloom and whatever. But the thing is, doom and gloom is a part of it all, because grieving our planet and being hopeless is a huge part of the experience for a lot of people, and the reason why a lot of people do not become activists or more active or more involved in the space, because it is so scary. And if you allow yourself to think about it a bit more, you just become like paralyzed because of the grief and everything. The text I'm talking about is called Under the Weather by Ash Sanders. And this one is very doom and gloom. And it's funny because I wanted to feel hopeful after this book, but like the darkest, saddest, hopeless text of it all gave me more hope than most of the other ones. Because first of all, it gave a name to a lot of the things that I was feeling, which I didn't know like those words existed, so that was helpful. And it just acknowledged the fact how hard it is to keep your spirits up and to keep working with the full awareness that the people in power don't do the same, and that there are so many people who don't care, and that despite all of our efforts, me and so many others, especially in this book, so many people dedicate their entire lives to environmentalism and sacrifice so much for it. And you have millions of young people on the streets for Fridays for Future, and scientists have been warning people for decades, and activists have been on this whole fight for decades. And despite all of that, there is still this very high chance that we won't make it, and that it might be too late, or that the people in power will always find a way to corrupt this movement that is just a movement for a better world, you know? Like, it's not like a specific ideology or anything. It's just people trying to make the world habitable for the future and to create a fairer place for everyone. And it's a beautiful dream, but sometimes on some days it just feels unachievable because so many people turn away from it or refuse to see the hard, depressing facts as they are. For example, as I'm recording this, COP27 is happening, and we all know COP27 is so disappointing in terms of politicians actually making choices. But it's such a good example because it happens in Egypt, where there are currently people in jail for protesting for environmentalism. It is sponsored by Coca-Cola, which is the biggest polluter on the planet. And that alone is like so mind-blowing to me. And most of the big, powerful people going there, who are there to make decisions, just arrived with their private jets. And that alone just, I don't even want to talk about it, because I know there are also good things happening, like grassroots networking and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at these things, it is so hard to keep your hopes up, and it is just not acknowledged. And I feel like there's no space for this fear and this darkness within you, that maybe it will not be enough. And maybe what we are doing, even if we sacrifice our entire lives, that it will not be enough. And there's this huge guilt and this anger and this sadness and this fear. And it's just, I want to feel hopeful. That's why what I wanted from the book. But I feel like there's also hope in feeling seen and heard within your darkness and with all those negative emotions. And I feel like that is often missing in the environmental space, and also in this collection, minus that one article. Again, it was not the only one that I loved, but it definitely
was the one that like had the biggest impact on me, and that made me feel more hopeful, because I was like, oh, finally somebody understands, and now I feel better moving forward and stubbornly continue to work despite the feelings, you know, and despite the potential of failure, because I don't know, everything else just feels very unrealistic sometimes. I've rambled on forever about this, but it was something that was very dear to my heart, and I don't know how I'm gonna rate the book yet, because again, some texts I absolutely loved and some I didn't really connect with, or just I found them repetitive or whatever. So I don't know. It's a great book, it's a great resource, and I would recommend it to people, especially if you're in the US. I highly recommend it. But I don't know how I personally feel about it. And I actually finished another book way before All We Can Save, and that was Legends and Lattes. I said before that I was reading this before bed, so my climate anxiety wasn't wrecking my nightmares. And I love that book. That book was 5 out of 5 stars. It felt like a warm hug, exactly what I needed. It was such a good choice. It was perfect, and I loved it, and I'm like this close to rereading it right away, even though I don't do that usually, but like it's such a great, comforting book for your mind and soul. Before I end the vlog here, because it's been going on for quite a long time, I think, like based on the footage that I filmed, it's been a long video. I just wanted to briefly talk about Notes from the Burning Age and the books I'm going to read next. First, Notes from the Burning Age. I mentioned before that I started this at the very beginning of the readathon, and I will no longer be reading this during this month. I'm not DNFing it, but as I said in that previous clip, I didn't really connect with the writing style. I didn't get very far into it. Which is why I'm not DNFing it, but like I didn't connect with it at all, and I had zero urge to pick it back up in the last week or so, so I'm not gonna force myself. I want to focus on reads that, well, not necessarily bring me joy, but like that I feel the urge to pick up, because, you know, it's a readathon. I want to read as much as possible and not force myself through books. And after All We Can Save, there are actually 2 books I want to pick up next, and the first one is Books and Islands by Louise Erdrich, because I really want to make sure that I'm reading something by an Indigenous author that is so important for me during Climathon. It's sometimes I wish like that was the only rule of the Climathon, because it's just so important. And also, funnily enough, there is also happening the Skoden, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Readathon, hosted by Native Book Warrior, I think is her channel. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I just discovered her through this readathon, so I haven't memorized the channel name yet. But please go check it out. I will leave everything linked down below. But it is basically a readathon also throughout the entire month of November, focusing on Indigenous books and Indigenous authors. And I love that so much, and I cannot prioritize it because of my Climathon, but I just want to make sure to definitely include the one Indigenous book on my TBR to make sure that is definitely read. Also, it is very short, which helps. And next is actually a physical book, and that was not on my original TBR, and it is called Mein Weg durch die Wälder, was mich Pilze über das Leben lehrten, in German. This is the English title. I think it's called Through the Woods or something along those lines. The book is written by a woman from Malaysia who has moved to Norway, and it is a book originally written in Norwegian, and it is the most translated Norwegian non-fiction. So dang, that's big. And I am so excited for this because the author is an anthropologist, which is what I studied. And she is going through a big period of grief, which is a topic that I'm always interested to read more about, and that is very dear to my heart. And she discovers the world of mushrooms, fungi, and the mycelium and forests, and I could not be more excited. I did not have this on my original TBR because I didn't have any physical books, because all my physical books are in boxes, because we're living in a very temporary place, which is why I don't have proper backgrounds or anything like it. And all my books are in boxes in our new house, covered under a bunch of other boxes. out of reach. But when my Kindle broke, I panicked that it would break again. Like even after it restarted, I was so afraid that my Kindle was gonna die on me that I went up there into that tiny space and like looked through all the boxes and got myself at least one physical book that I could read. And I just got so excited about it that I still want to read it even when my Kindle is working. So that's definitely one of the next things I'm gonna pick up. That's it. Thank you so much for joining me on the island and on this readathon journey. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I hope that this storm is gonna calm down. And I see you next time. Bye!